The devils and evil spirits of Babylonia, being Babylonian and Assyrian incantations against the demons, ghouls, vampires, hobgoblins, ghosts, and kindred evil spirits which attack mankind. Translated from the original cuneiform text with transliterations, vocabulary, notes, etc. by R. Campbell Thompson, M.A., Assistant in the Department of Egyptian and Assyrian Antiquities, British Museum. Volume 1, Evil Spirits. London, Luzac & Co., 1903. To my father, Reginald E. Thompson, M.D. Preface. The object of the 2 volumes which form the present work is to supply the student of Assyrian demonology with English transliterations and translations, with the necessary notes, etc., of the documents printed in the 16th and 17th parts of the cuneiform text of Babylonian tablets, etc., which have been recently issued by the trustees of the British Museum. An examination of these 2 parts will show that they contain copies of all the tablets belonging to the series Utuki Limnuti, Ashaki Marshuti, and Tiai, i.e. evil spirits, fever sickness, and headache, which have now been identified, together with the text of a considerable number of compositions of a similar character. These collections of evil spirit texts form large and important sections of the native literature concerning Babylonian and Assyrian demonology, and there is reason to believe that the material now published represents about 1/2 of that belonging to the 3 series mentioned above, which was known to the scribes of Ashurbanipal. Of the condition of the archetypes in pre-Babylonian times, we have no information whatever, but there is no reason to doubt that the versions which were adopted as standard texts in the reign of Ashurbanipal represented substantially the readings of the primitive documents. We are, in short, justified in assuming that we have in our hands at the present time tolerably accurate copies of the exorcisms and spells which the Sumerian and his Babylonian successor employed some 6,000 or 7,000 years ago to avert the attacks of devils and to ward off malign influences of every kind. The first to make known to the world the character of the evil spirit texts was the late General H.C. Rawlinson, Bart, G.C.B., who published in the 4th volume of the Cuneiform Inscriptions of Western Asia, London, 1875, as much of the text of the 5th and 16th tablets as had been identified. During the period of the preparation of the 70 plates which formed the 4th volume, printed copies of many of them were supplied to M. François Lenormand and to various other scholars, and Monsieur Lenormand issued some months before the appearance of the British Museum publication his La Magie chez les Chaldeans et les Origines Acadiennes, in which he gave renderings of several of the texts relating to evil spirits. In the year 1887, Professor Sayce, in his Hibbert Lectures, gave English translations of the greater number of the texts with which Monsieur Lenormand had already dealt, as well as of others. The translations, however, of both these scholars were necessarily incomplete, for a simple reason that only a portion of the available material had been published by the late Sir Henry Rawlinson, who made no pretense of publishing in his immortal corpus of cuneiform texts more than specimens of the various classes of literature which were known to the Babylonians and Assyrians. Subsequently, several of the texts of this class have been studied and referred to in the publications of various Assyriologists. But the present work represents the first attempt which has been made to deal with any of the groups of the evil spirit texts as a whole, and of course no connected translations of them have before appeared. In this and the following volume of Messrs. Luzac's Semitic Texts and Translation Series, transliterations and translations of about 240 tablets and fragments belonging to various collections in the British Museum are given, and it is believed that about 160 of these are published in the cuneiform text from Babylonian tablets, etc., parts 16 and 17 for the first time. The present publication is intended to do so for the Evil Spirits series, in the series relating to the fevers and headaches, what Professor Zimmern has done for the Sherpu series, and Professor Talkvisit did for the Malku series. The reader's attention is called to the fact that where it has been impossible to assign to tablets their correct position in the series, they have been indicated by the letters A, B, C, etc. In translating the text, the renderings into English have been made as literal as possible, and wherever possible, the Assyrian word has been translated by the same English equivalent. The material given in the following pages will be found to afford abundant proof of the fact that a considerable portion of the magical practices which are in use in the East to the present day were well known to the inhabitants of Mesopotamia several thousand years ago, and that many of them were borrowed by the Hebrews and other dwellers in Syria and Persia from their neighbors on the Tigris and Euphrates. As was to be expected, a number of misconceptions have arisen during the last few years as to the purport of certain magical texts, and as an example of this may be specially mentioned the views which have been promulgated concerning Tablet K. for it has been confidently asserted that this document contains an allusion to the biblical Garden of Eden. The text of this tablet mentions a place called Eridu, and a plant or tree named Kishkanu, of dense growth and shining appearance which grew beside the abyss, i.e. the ocean or sea. The place where the plant grew was said to be on the couch of a god. Immediately following these statements is a reference to Shamash and Tammuz, who are said to dwell in its interior, and mention is next made of the mouths of the rivers. Such are the statements of the tablet, but basing their opinion on certain interpretations of the above texts, some Assyriologists have asserted that the Babylonian Garden of Eden was in the immediate vicinity of Eridu, and they have identified the tree or plant with the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which was believed to grow in the Hebrew paradise. Quite recently, however, the missing portion of this text has been identified, and it is now clear that the text is an incantation and nothing more. This document, the opening lines of which have been so strangely misunderstood, indicated to the magician who was about to treat his afflicted patient that a certain kind of plant or tree, the origin of which, according to tradition, grew in Eridu and afforded a dwelling to Shamash and Tammuz, contained magical properties. In acting on this information, the magician was directed to make use of a portion of the Kishkanu plant or tree on behalf of the said patient. The text actually states that the gods themselves made use of this plant to work a miracle of healing, and the implication is that the Kishkanu plant was on this occasion of great benefit. It may again be made to perform the healing of a sufferer, always provided that suitable words of power were recited by a duly qualified person, and appropriate ceremonies were performed, before the plant itself was used as a remedy. Thus, there is no reason for believing that the text of Tablet K contains any allusion to the Garden of Eden, or that the plant Kishkanu is anything more than a herb or shrub which was used in working magic. Further, the identification of the Kishkanu plant with the vine has nothing to rest upon, and still less does it in any way represent the Babylonian equivalent of the Tree of Life. The mouths of the rivers have nothing to do with the four rivers of the Hebrew paradise, and the new fragment leaves no room for doubt that the line in which they are mentioned merely explains the locality from which the gods obtained the plant, namely from the confluence of the two streams or rivers. To Mr. L. W. King, I owe many thanks for his friendly help in this work, and especially his assistance in reading doubtful signs on the clay tablets. In conclusion, my thanks are due to Dr. E. A. Wallace Budge for such kind help, and for his numerous suggestions in such parts of the volume as deal with comparative magic. R. Campbell Thompson, London, June 1st, 1903. List of the Tablets, Series Utuki Limnuti,